What is going on, comic book gang? My name is Jiangxi, aka Year of the Collector, and I'm back with the final installment from Jamal Campbell's Zatanna It's Showtime series. I know, I should have closed out this series a long time ago. That's on me, that's my bad. But we're here. So without further ado, let's get into it. So previously, Zatanna had been unraveling the mystery of the Leviathan sword. This golden magical sword that had been stuck in her chest since the first issue. Same sword that had been used on others like Blue Devil, Clayface, and Vidofnir, the protector of Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life. Leviathan is a lie personified. It cuts deep into people's most inner demons and forces them to see everything through a dark lens. Hence why Zatanna's memories were obfuscated, different, or seemingly changed. It wasn't because Campbell was retconning Zatanna's history, it was because the Leviathan sword was messing with her mind. But, long story short, Zatanna stole words from the Leviathan for a magical spell, broke out of the pages of her own comic book, and eventually reunited with Cindela, her deceased mother. Zatanna saw through the lies and broke the spell. Everything has led to a clash with the culprits behind the whole magical ordeal. But in the real world, there was a coup happening. Lady White teamed up with Allura, an old enemy of the Zatara family, to betray Brother Knight using the Leviathan sword. Let's jump right into issue number 6, the conclusion of this series. I have to go back to the beginning. These splash pages with fairy tales are actually pretty significant and important to this series. In the very first issue, we're told about this princess who lived in a large golden castle who couldn't stop her shadow from crying. So, she went down to the village below her castle and asked for help. The Homomagi in the village helped by casting a spell that brought the girl's shadow to life. Thus, the one princess became two, a sister of light and a sister of shadow. Fast forward to issue number 6. Here's another story reading time from that mysterious book, same as before. This particular story about the twin sisters, the princesses if you will, is very interesting. One was a sister with a heart of light, the other was a sister with a heart of shadows. Despite the love they had for each other, they were separated by magic, and so they drifted apart, to the point where the sister with a heart of shadows turned bad and gave in to the chaos. They needed each other to balance each other out, but one day, the Archmage from the village did not listen to that explanation and banished the sister of shadow to another realm. The sister with the heart of shadows couldn't do anything but curse the Archmage and her entire family as she was sent away. If you were wondering who the Archmage from the village is, that is in fact Cindela, Zatanna's mother. We know this because we saw Cindela and Giovanni Zatara in the very first issue, and Cindela was wearing that same outfit. Also, if you still have your doubts, when DC Comics published the press release for this run on their website, their promo materials included a lineup of characters and their concept designs by Campbell. Take a look. There's Z, Blue Devil, Madame Xanadu, the stage crew, Mikey, Arnie, Andre, and Adam, Brother Knight, Lady White, and finally, Cindela and Giovanni Zatara. You might recognize Cindela's design from Justice League number 164, where Zatanna and Cindela met for the first time in comic books, and they were both wearing the same costume more or less. Before we pick up the story at the present time, we are taken back a few weeks prior to the beginning of the story. Princess Allura, or rather, the Shadow Sister Allura, approached Lady White with a proposal for a quid pro quo. Allura wanted revenge on the Zatara family, or more specifically, she wanted to enact her vengeance upon Zatanna, since she's the last survivor of the Zatara family. Lady White had been resurrected by Brother Knight, who's a necromancer, All she wanted was to go back to being dead. Princess Allura couldn't kill Lady White, but she could, however, release her from the control of Brother Knight. Allura's assessment was that Brother Knight used some elementary blood magic to control Lady White, and that explains the reason why she never fought back, even when we saw her being mistreated by Brother Knight. Lucky for both of these ladies, Brother Knight had gotten his hands on the Leviathan sword. Lady White didn't know what it was, so Allura educated her. Once again, for those who haven't seen the previous videos, the Leviathan was a weapon crafted by Loki, the god of mischief. The Leviathan can take many forms, it can multiply into infinite copies, and the way it works is that once someone gets stabbed by it, a well-crafted lie will latch onto that person, and it will corrode them until there's nothing left. That's why Zatanna looked like she was shattering from the inside. It's both a psychological and a physical weapon. So that's how these two evil ladies came together to conspire against Zatanna and Brother Knight. So we return to the present time where Lady White and Allura stabbed Brother Knight with the Leviathan sword. They were ready to celebrate and enjoy the fruits of their labor, but Brother Knight tried to warn them that Zatanna was probably on her way back. But Allura didn't want to hear it. She was already celebrating Zatanna's demise, hoping that she had already shattered into pieces. But Brother Knight had a laugh at their expense. He said to Lady White that she didn't know who she was making deals with because she didn't know who the real Allura was, which is true, they just met. Also, Brother Knight says they were deceiving themselves if they thought Zatanna was a goner. Speaking from his personal experience, he knew it would take more than that to put Zatanna down for good. He proceeded to fight back by casting a spell on the Crimson Palace, the nightclub that they're in. It turns out there's some deity hidden inside this nightclub, and Brother Knight just offered everyone inside as a sacrifice to the Crimson Hunger, himself included. Lady White tried following him, but Allura stopped her, and that's when they realized they were not alone. Just as Brother Knight said, Zatanna made her way back to the Crimson Palace. The last time she was at the nightclub, she was outnumbered. Brother Knight and Lady White had turned Blue Devil and Adam against her. So, to make this a fair fight, she decided to bring it back. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a special comeback of the one and only Justice League Dark. Making their grand entrance, we got Madame Xanadu, Ragman, Detective Chimp, Dr. Fate, Etrigan, Wonder Woman, and of course, the ringleader, Zatara. Just in case you didn't know, Justice League Dark is the official team in the DC universe that takes on the supernatural, the paranormal, the magical, mystical, and occult elements in this universe. There's been several iterations of this team if you want to count the unofficial team-ups, which I do, so let's go through them really quick. First unofficial Justice League Dark team-up was in 1984 via the Saga of the Swamp Thing annual issue number 2, when Swamp Thing came in contact with the likes of Deadman, Etrigan, Phantom Stranger, and the Spectre. The second unofficial Justice League Dark team-up took place a year later in 1985 via the Blue Devil annual issue number 1, where Man-Bat, Black Orchid, Madame Xanadu, Phantom Stranger, Blue Devil, Etrigan, and Creeper joined forces to defeat Felix Faust. The Creeper suggested forming a spooky version of the Justice League since they worked so well together, but everyone shut the idea down. The third unofficial team-up of the Justice League Dark happened in Saga of the Swamp Thing number 49 and number 50 from 1986, where once again Swamp Thing joined forces with Hellblazer, Deadman, Phantom Stranger, Dr. Occult, Etrigan the Demon, Zatanna, the Spectre, Sargon, and Dr. Fate. In issue 50, we saw the death of Giovanni Zatara and Sargon the Sorcerer, highlighting the risk and the dangers these heroes took when facing these dark forces. Now, The first official Justice League Dark team and comic book series came out during the New 52 era. The original roster was Hellblazer, Shade the Changing Man, Madame Xanadu, Deadman, and Zatanna, with a number of rotating members like Swamp Thing, Black Orchid, Andrew Bennett, Dr. Mist, Amethyst, Frankenstein, Nightmare Nurse, Timothy Hunter, and many others. Finally, the most recent iteration of Justice League Dark came during the Rebirth era in 2018 when James Tynion put the gang back together with Detective Chimp, Zatanna, Man-Bat, Swamp Thing, and for the first time ever, Diana of Themyscira, the Wonder Woman. Along with that stacked roster, there were a few others that joined the team in this run, people like Blue Devil, the Creature Commandos, Etrigan, the Lords of Order, and so many more. The Justice League Dark has a rich, long-lasting history of uncanny heroes coming together to beat incredible odds, and Zatanna has been a constant on this team from the very beginning. As we saw on issue number 3, since the team disbanded, Detective Chimp and Blue Devil have been running the Oblivion Bar. Business was slow because everyone seems to be hanging out at the Crimson Palace Nightclub since it opened. They were pretty much twiddling their thumbs at this point, but much to their surprise, someone was banging at the door and trying to enter the bar, and lo and behold, it was Zatanna. She crashed the bar unannounced after she was stabbed by Adam with the Leviathan sword. This was not the most ideal way to reunite, but they were together again for the first time since the Rebirth series. Before anyone could figure out what was happening to her, Zatanna teleported herself out of there. They didn't know what was happening with Zatanna, but they knew she needed help. So, Bobo got in touch with whoever he could from Justice League Dark in the event that Zatanna needed them. Hence why they came through ready to roll. Ragman and Bobo were evacuating people, Madame Xanadu and Dr. Fate focused on stopping the Crimson Palace from devouring everyone in it, and Wonder Woman was flexing her muscles, pulling people out from the goo that was eating them. Etrigan was being a demon. Without any hesitation, he immediately went after Nebulos. Why is that? Well, thanks to Jamal Campbell, these two have a history. The reason Blue Devil exists in the first place is because Etrigan fought the blue demon Nebulos in hell. Etrigan beat the demon and discarded his skin when he was done with Nebulos. Like I said, they called him the demon for a reason. Eventually, that same skin found its way into Hollywood where professional stunt double Daniel Cassidy was working. He put on the suit and he's never been able to take it off ever since. In fact, this is not Nebulos the demon, it's Daniel Cassidy, better known as the Blue Devil. He was caught by Brother Knight and then stabbed with a Leviathan sword by Lady White. That caused Blue Devil to fully transform into Nebulos, which is why Wonder Woman, Etrigan, and Zatanna triple team him and held him down with the lasso of truth. Daniel Cassidy is under the spell of the Leviathan sword. Zatanna asked the lasso to help her dispel the lie being told to Cassidy. That's when Zatanna goes into Daniel's mind and finds him trapped in a room filled with guilt, regret, and self-loathing. Believe it or not, Daniel Cassidy is a very religious person. He's always been at odds with the fact that he walks around as a devil. So, the Leviathan sword, the lie being fed to Cassidy is that he was made to be the Blue Devil because he is evil, a sinner, a demon, a monster, a fiend, and so on and so forth. I know you will say, why would Blue Devil, an actual hero with an impeccable record, be susceptible to this lie in particular? Well, that's because the Leviathan sword knows that it only takes a little twist on the truth to make you believe it's lies. Just like Zatanna saw visions of her own life, some parts were true and some parts were twisted. For example, Cassidy says he hasn't been able to step inside a church ever since he put on the Blue Devil suit without feeling unwelcome, his eyes and skin burning at the sight of a cross. This is true. In fact, back in Infinite Crisis, there was a moment of calm in between all the chaos, like imagine the eye of the storm. During this short break, Sauriel, the eagle host of angels, held a mass for all believers of the faith to come together and pray. A lot of people from the hero community attended, to include an unofficial version of the Justice League Dark, if you will, that included Huntress, Shining Knight, Detective Chimp, Madame Xanadu, and Blue Devil, who was literally combusting into flames. So that was the truth, but not because Daniel Cassidy was an evil, demonic, or unwelcome by God. It was rather because the Blue Devil suit he had on belonged to an actual demon from hell. That's exactly what Zatanna tries to convey to Daniel. He might wear the demon skin of Nebidos, but his kindness and humor turned that same skin into the Blue Devil hero. Of course, Daniel was unable to believe this, so Zatanna showed him the lasso of truth. And would you look at that? The Golden Perfect showed the truth to Daniel Cassidy. The Blue Devil is in fact an angel, a godsend from the heavens. And just like that, the lie and the whole of the Leviathan sword over Daniel is broken. He is back to being his Blue Devil self. Etrigan, however, was bummed because he couldn't fight Nebiros again, but they promised to do some arm wrestling contest later. The fight is not over yet. This is now a tag team match. Zatanna and Wonder Woman versus Allura and Lady White. Zatanna summons sunlight, which disintegrates Lady White because she's a vampire. Allura tries to use the Leviathan sword on Wonder Woman, but it doesn't even touch her skin. Diana is like the embodiment of truth, so she destroys the sword like it was nothing. Zatanna said they need to wrap this up and find Adam, but Lady White catches her off guard and goes for her neck. This fight was about to get ugly. That's what Lady White thought. In a twist of the mud kind, this was Clayface posing as Zatanna. Bravo! Another award-winning performance from Basil Carlo. Zatanna should feature him in a magic show or something in the near future. The man has undeniable talent. Zatanna traps herself inside a box with Lady White and teleports herself inside her mind. What's in the mind of the famous Lady White? Her place of home and her coven, the people she comes from. She could not believe it, and before she could go off on Zatanna for messing with her memories, Zatanna revealed the truth. Allura had seated herself inside the fragile mind of Lady White, eating away at her soul like a parasite. It turns out that little story she told Lady White to convince her to help her was not entirely true. She wasn't the twin sister of a princess. Instead, she had attached herself to that little girl and possessed her. Led by Cinderella, the Homo Magi from the town exorcised Allura to save that princess and ban her to another realm. Allura doesn't deny anything. In fact, she claims that since Cinderella robbed her of that soul, Cinderella owed her a soul still to this day. But since Cinderella is dead, it's up to Zatanna to pay her back. They got into it. Allura seemed to be too strong at first, but then Zatanna flipped the script. She reminded Lady White that they are inside her mind, and there was a deal to be made. She could keep the deal she made with Allura, continue to fight until Zatanna put her down, or she could call a truce, break her deal with Allura, and take control of her own life. Lady White wised up and accepted this new deal, and she kicked Allura off her mind. Allura was upset that things didn't turn out how she wanted, of course, but before she could hide in the shadows again, she got jumped by Zatanna and Lady White. It was a ruse. Lady White held her down while Zatanna came through with one Leviathan sword. Allura was surprised. I guess she thought all the swords had been destroyed, but this one specifically was the sword Lady White had used on Clayface, which did not get destroyed. Instead, Clayface had been dispersed into a million pieces, and that's how he broke free from the spell without breaking the sword. Allura was convinced that there wasn't any lie that the Leviathan sword could tell that she would be fooled by. However, when Zatanna introduced the Leviathan to Allura, she also added a little magic of her own. She said backwards, basically, she called her just a harmless little spirit. And before we can see what happens, it fades to white. From there, we go to a lighthouse off the coast of Italy where Zatanna and Lady Y had a heart-to-heart moment. Zatanna explained that she had some fond memories in this lighthouse specifically. She came here with her parents after a magic show and she threw a temper tantrum over ice cream, and during her little moment, she managed to say the word gelato backwards with enough force behind it that 3 ice cream scoops fell from the sky. This is the memory that the Leviathan sword attached itself to. That's why she first appeared here in this lighthouse when she was stabbed by Adam with the sword. So, in order for the truce to be kept, they sort of played 21 questions with each other. First, Lady Y asked what happened to Allura, and well, long story short, she is currently a harmless little spirit, just like Zatanna said. But it's just a matter of time until Allura finds a way to break the spell. Zatanna's question was about Adam. Like, how was he able to escape in the state he was during the chaos inside the Crimson Palace? Lady White said she had no clue what happened to Adam, but she was clearly lying. Adam seemed to be serving Lady White on a full-time basis now. This is probably a loose thread that Campbell will address in the upcoming Zatanna series, where he returns as part of the next level, what DC is calling Act 2 of the DC All-In Initiative. If anyone was to continue this current era for the Mistress of Magic, it should be Jamal Campbell, in my opinion. Inside DC Connect number 69, you got a preview of the concept designs for the characters that will be featured in this series, to include the all-new concept design for Prime Magus Zatanna, which I'm pretty excited for. There's also the different covers for issue number 1, and the final order cutoff is April 6th of 2026, so make sure you get your pre-orders in. Back to the story. After lying through her ghostly white fangs, Lady White asked Zatanna about the Crimson Palace and Brother Knight. Unfortunately, there are no answers at the moment. The palace is in the custody of a friend, with Brother Knight still trapped inside its walls. No one knows what the palace is or what Brother Knight is doing inside of it. With that said, Lady Y stated she had no beef with Zatanna, but she will tear through anyone to get back at Brother Knight, and just like that, she goes away. Blue Devil was like, oh, you're just gonna let her get away? But Zatanna recognized that things were pretty raw right now, and pushing would just make things worse, hoping that in the future they can work things out. With that being said, Cassidy reminds Zatanna that she was running late for a magic show at the Oblivion Bar of all places. So they take their leave, and that's the end. I don't know about you, but that was pretty freaking amazing. So here are my final thoughts. This was an excellent ending for this amazing series. I'm not sure if this was the stronger issue for this title. I'm more inclined to say no. Perhaps the previous issue was the strongest, but nonetheless, this was a great conclusion. I feel like the story actually landed perfectly. When I first read this, I had a strong feeling that Jamal Campbell was not done with Zatanna, not just because of the last words from the last page, but the fact that there wasn't a permanent resolution for 3 out of the 4 main conflicts just told me that Campbell was gonna have to come back to follow those threads into a new series, and lo and behold, it got announced a couple months later. Zatanna was very formidable, but even as mighty as Zatanna showcased herself to be, she had the presence of mind to call for help. I mean, half of the Justice League Dark had been all over the series since issue 1. Why not have them assemble fully and kick some magical butts? I was pretty excited to see this group back. I don't know about you. Even if it was for a brief moment. And this is just me, I just need Batwoman to join the Justice League Dark at one point in my lifetime. Come on, DC, you know you want to. And with that being said, my name is Jancy, aka Year the Collector. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed day, and remember to read more comics.